It's finally October, one of arguably the best sports months in the year. And guess what? We're also talking more than just football today. It's the Extra Point, and it starts right now. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Extra Point. It's good to be back. I'm your host, Griffin Barfield, and today, once again, we have 5 panelists ready to share their thoughts about what's going on this week in sports. And from left to right, here they are. They're Jordan York, Caden Hughes, Drew Landon, Toby Corriston, and Jackson Cash. Guys, welcome back to the show. Caden, it is your first show. Welcome to the show. We're happy to have you here. Excited to hear what you have to say today. So why not get right into it? And we'll start maybe right where we left off, and we were talking about that SEC matchup between Alabama and Georgia, and what a game that was. Game of the year, in my opinion. Alabama won 41-34. I mean, it had everything. It had everything from turnovers, late game, touchdowns. I mean, you name it, it was there. And now Alabama are now number 1 in the AP poll. So, I mean, there's so much to unpack here, and I know that you guys are going to unpack it because that's what you guys are very good at doing. So we're going to start with the hashtag game. So what was your reaction in a hashtag to how this game went? Who wants to start?
As the only member of this esteemed panel to pick Alabama last week, my hashtag is 4 + 2 = 6, because if you didn't see that Saturday, you didn't watch the game. Jalen Milroe came out and dominated right away for Alabama. They got out to a 4-touchdown lead in what seemed like an instant. And then in the second half, Georgia made an epic comeback. I low-key thought they were going to win when they took the lead with like 2.5 minutes left. And then 4 + 2 = 6. Jalen Milroe found Ryan Williams. Ryan Williams made a beautiful spin move after that catch that looked like probably one of the smoothest spin moves I've ever seen. Brought Alabama to the lead 41-34, and then ultimately the pick to seal the game. Who's going to stop Alabama? I don't know.
I think only Alabama can stop Alabama, but also I'm going CPR because Ryan Williams revived that offense right there. I mean, Alabama's offense had been anemic for the better part of 3 quarters up until that point. After they jumped out to that big lead, first quarter and part of the second, they went dead. They barely scored, and he came through in the clutch. He got that touchdown. Jalen Milroe had a great game. And obviously, Georgia's a great defense, so I'm not faulting them for faltering a little bit in those second and third quarters. But what a game. I don't have anything to say. I'm still not upset that I picked Georgia. It was a great game. I think Kalen DeBoer has proved that he's there. That was my question going into that game, is can Kalen DeBoer prove that he can win in an SEC environment? And yes, he can.
Yeah, mine is hashtag too little too late. Unfortunately for Georgia, Beck showed up way too late in the game. He put up 439 yards in that last half of the game, and he put up probably a third of that in the first half, and that was like the deciding factor. Of course, Ryan Williams showed up big time in this game. It just wasn't enough for Georgia to fully go over the line, though. I feel like if they performed like that in the first half, it's absolutely their game to win.
Me? I went with hashtag all bark still bite. I think this game was kind of the exception that proves the rule for Georgia. I think they're such an incredible team, and I think this game showed how hard it is to beat them because Alabama played such an incredible first quarter. And, I mean, Williams was so good the entire game. I don't think Georgia had much of an answer for how to stop him because he's so new to college football, and he's already taking over and stuff. I think that even with all of that, Georgia still came back and played an incredible game. And I don't see other teams competing with and beating Georgia in the future. I feel more bought in their ability to go all the way and win a championship this year after that game.
Okay. I went with Dynasty ? I think after the Kentucky game, a lot of people were a little bit concerned at Georgia's reliability in winning big games because they went into Kroger Field and almost lost it. They won by a point to a Kentucky team that was beat the brakes off of by South Carolina. Obviously, the seeds in that game were planted in the Bama game. Georgia did fight hard. They almost came back and won it, but yet again, Ryan Williams, arguably one of the best freshmen in college football, probably the best. And I just think that at this point, if Georgia wants to go for that third national championship and create a dynasty, they're going to have to escape Bama. And they almost came back and beat them, but at this point, I think SEC championship is probably going to be Texas-Bama just by the way Georgia played against Bama on Saturday.
I just want to say one thing and add one thing. Georgia can absolutely make it back to the top of the mountain, but they have a problem. They can't play in the first half. They didn't play in the first half versus Clemson. They didn't play in the first half versus Kentucky. They didn't play in the first half against Alabama. So they have to find a way to get out of the gates early. If they find a way to jumpstart this team, start scoring points early on in the games, again, they're going to be a very tough team to beat, and they still are a very tough team to beat, but we've seen that be their main hindrance going forward.
I will add just one final bit. Georgia has established themselves as a second-half team. Alabama did it when they had Nick Saban and were winning championships year after year. Kirby Smart has taken that same kind of parameter and brought that to Georgia. So that's exactly what you've seen in the first half of this season. Just 27 points was too much to overcome. And about that Kentucky game, them beating Ole Miss actually makes Georgia only winning by one less of a shock, because they went into Oxford and beat Ole Miss in the Grove. Not easy to do. Jackson Dart did not look great at all during that game. Kentucky's defense played great. They kept the ball, chewed the clock, won the game. That's exactly what you're supposed to do. We're close to doing it against Georgia, just couldn't get it done.
I'd say that speaks more on Kentucky than Ole Miss, or Ole Miss than Kentucky, but I get what you're saying. I completely agree.
Yeah, again, with Georgia, right, they have another tough schedule. I think this is the only beginning, and there was a lot of viral things on social media about what Kirby Smart said afterwards, and he's very right. You have to worry about Texas in about 2 weeks. You have Ole Miss away, and then you host Tennessee, which most likely could probably be that SEC championship berth, bearing what happens in the Georgia, what happens in Alabama, that whole thing. So I'm very interested to see how Georgia bounces back. I think that it's going to really, really have to depend on, especially this offense, getting going early. Like Toby said, that was something that I wanted to bring up as well. So this will be an interesting team to monitor. It's all about how you bounce back, and we'll see how Georgia does that. But next up, we'll move to golf. How about that? I think this is the first time that maybe Masters, but besides the point. The President's Cup was this past weekend, and the United States defeated the Internationals for the 10th straight year. They won 18.5 to 11.5. Guys, again, what was your reaction to this?
Very happy man here on my left. Loves talking about golf. Right up your alley, man.
Yeah, I mean, I went 5-0 because Thursday and Friday were both 5-0. It was more of an exciting President's Cup than we normally get. 20 of the 30 matches were decided on the 17th or 18th hole, which you don't see a lot. So although the U.S. team won by more than they've ever won before, 18.5 to 11.5, I believe, you don't see these types of matches be that close. And Thursday, the U.S. jumped out to a huge lead, 5-0. They won all 5 four-ball matches. And then the international team came back and won all 5 matches on Friday. It was 5-5. Then things started rolling for the U.S. team. But Xander Schauffele set the tone for this team. He went out there in the first match of the day and made, I think, a 40 bomb, a 30 bomb, and a 20 bomb within the first 9 holes, and just got this U.S. team rolling out of the gates, and they kept that momentum through that Thursday, which set them up to allow the 5-0 comeback, and then they just played better golf.
Yep. Banking off of that, mine is same old, same old. Same thing, dominance over the last 19 years, and as Toby said, Schauffele just dominated. Shows how the U.S. always can continue to beat the internationals throughout the year.
My hashtag is actually a tribute to one of the PGA players for Team US. Everything Burns. Sam Burns. How about that? Of all the guys on Team USA, when you've got Scotty Scheffler, world number 1, Colin Morikawa, who's established himself as a perennial contender, Xander Schauffele, who we've talked about, and Sam Burns is the only one to go unbeaten. How about that? So yes, big win for the U.S. I feel like everybody kind of knew it was coming, but Sam Burns had a heck of a President's Cup, and he should be honored for that.
To piggyback off that, I did hashtag #WeRunGolf because I think the United States, like you said, we saw it coming, and it was obvious because the United States is just that much better than everyone else at golf and stuff. So it was fun to go across the pond and get a bunch of easy wins. But yeah.
I went with different than SOS. I went with SMS. Simply stands for Schauffele, Morikawa, and Scheffler. Clearly, these guys are some of the biggest names in golf, and it showed why in the President's Cup. I mean, they pretty much almost carried the teams to the win, and of course Burns unbeaten. It's incredible. It really is. But it makes sense. We're the number one in golf, and it shows in that cup. Really does.
It was close, though. It was a lot closer than people think. Like I said, 20 of the 30 matches decided on the 17th or 18th hole. And also, the international team came out firing. They made they chipped in a lot. I swear, every time I turned on the TV, they were chipping in. So they made this competitive. They're showing that they are right up to the standard of the U.S. team, and a couple putts don't fall, and the international team is hoisting that trophy. But let's go back to one specific match. Scottie Scheffler and Tom Kim fed families. They were chirping at each other the whole time. Tom Kim had said the U.S. team was cursing at him. Him and Scheffler are very good friends, don't get me wrong, but their competitive juices were flowing, and it is one of the most exciting atmospheres in golf. The Ryder Cup is more exciting, but this President's Cup, a cup that most people normally don't watch and don't care about, became one of the more exciting golf tournaments of the year, and that's a huge part to Scottie Scheffler versus Tom Kim.
I think this President's Cup was definitely one of the more exciting ones we've seen in recent years, but I think it kind of just speaks to how everything is with the U.S. and the rest of the world when it comes to just any sports. We saw it in the Olympics, how much closer the international teams were to beating America in basketball, which used to never be the case. Now the internationals are close to beating the U.S. in golf. It's like eventually they're going to get to the same level. It's just a matter of time before that happens.
No, I think it really caps off a great year of golf. I mean, like Toby said, a lot of these big tournaments, especially counting out the President's Cup, have been very close. I'm really thinking about that PGA tournament that Xander won with Bryson waiting in the wings, and then Bryson winning the U.S. Open against Rory McIlroy, who missed a putt. And then Scottie Scheffler, of course, coming back, winning the gold. I mean, there's a lot of very memorable moments from this whole year, this whole calendar year of golf, which I think is very exciting and drew in a lot of viewers. So I'm excited to see how that kind of rolls into the beginning of the PGA Tour going into next year. Lastly, for our hashtag game, let's talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, this is everybody's favorite team to talk about. And we'll talk about standout receiver Rashee Rice. He was carted off in the first quarter against the Chargers, who were not undefeated. I'll keep that in mind. Carted off, and it was from a hit by quarterback Patrick Mahomes. And there was fear that he tore his ACL. I've heard that it was a little bit better than that. I don't think it is a torn ACL. But what was your guys' reaction to this? Because I know this was all over the internet.
My reaction is no for 3. I had the Chiefs three-peating this year. I really did. But with this injury, they just don't have anybody left. Kareem Hunt is their starting running back for the next 6 weeks, probably. You're relying on a regressing Travis Kelce to be your best option, or you're turning to a true freshman, or not a true freshman, a true rookie, and you're saying step up. But they don't have anybody after that. I just don't think the Mahomes magic is going to be able to continue. I think they're going to be a very tough team. They're still a tough team to beat. It's still Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. But all of a sudden, they look pretty beatable.
I have one dare for one member of the Chiefs team. Prove you're worthy. Xavier Worthy is now going to be the man for this Chiefs team. And you see him getting 5 receptions when Rashee Rice wasn't injured. But now you're going to see him up there like 12, 13. Fantasy owners, definitely put him in your team. I would recommend that. I think he's going to be the main piece of this Chiefs team. I wouldn't fully count the Chiefs out yet. I'm not putting them fully out of the picture. I feel like they can definitely make a run. But it's all up to Xavier Worthy at this point, and Mahomes is definitely going to have to turn to him and make sure that he has a good performance throughout the rest of this year.
To piggyback off that, I want to ask you, Drew, how much do you weigh?
145?
145. How much do you weigh?
About the same.
About the same. Toby?
158.
Jackson?
159.
159. So y'all are around the body type of Xavier Worthy. Yeah, he's 5'11", 165. I know he's fast, but he's not a wide receiver one, and for some reason he is here. I put for 3 of the 4 Chiefs receivers, I did 3 hashtags. I did hashtag unworthy, hashtag the sky's the floor, and hashtag Juju on the Chiefs. I said at the start of the season that the Chiefs have to lose and not make the Super Bowl before I can pick for them to lose. I think Mahomes is that good, and I just think I'm so sick of the whole the regular season saying, oh, the Chiefs, they're barely winning, the receiving core isn't very good, and they always figure it out. This year is really, really testing that. I mean, I think, like I said, Xavier Worthy, he's an exciting gadget player, a Will Fuller type of player, I think, that can be a good deep threat. But as a wide receiver one, there's just I see no way he can be any good. Sky Moore has been, I loved him coming out of the draft. He's been a disappointing player. He reminds me of a Ray McCloud type of gadget player. Maybe good on special teams someday. And then I think it's so hard to be boring when you play for Patrick Mahomes, but I think Juju Smith-Schuster might be able to do that. He's just a player on the Chiefs. I'm not excited about that at all. And then Justin Watson's there to drop passes and stuff, but I don't know, man. No running game, all these receivers gone. It's so hard to bet against the Chiefs, but if you're gonna sell your Chiefs stock, this might be the time to do that.
So my hashtag was wrecked solely because the interception happened, which wrecked the drive, obviously, that Kansas City was on. And then the injury happened, which wrecked Rashee Rice's knee. And Lord knows if he'll come back this season. But I just want to piggyback off of kind of what y'all have been saying about counting the Chiefs out. Let's not forget the last time they really didn't have any talented receivers who they threw the ball to a crap ton. It's a guy dating Taylor Swift, who they call Travis Kelce. He has not caught a touchdown pass yet this season. He has not been used to the level that the Chiefs usually use him at because they're trying to get the ball to Xavier Worthy, to Rashee Rice, to Isaiah Pacheco / Kareem Hunt. And I feel like now that they don't have any options, Travis Kelce's fantasy stock, his uptake, his use is going to go through the roof back to the way it was when they won after Tyreek Hill left Kansas City.
Can he handle that work still? I mean, he's getting old. Like, not old as in, like, regular people old, but old for a true wide receiver. I know he's a tight end, but the true number one target on a team.
He is 34 years old.
That's old for a skill player. And then also the other head distractions. I just don't know if he can handle it all as the number one guy.
I think that's fair. And 34 in the NFL is, like, ancient. But when it comes to just old reliable, I mean, just bringing it local, we talk Jake Brenningstool is old reliable usually for Clemson. I feel like if you've got Mahomes who just needs somebody to get the ball to in a crucial situation, he's going to somehow find a way to get it to old reliable Travis Kelce and keep the Chiefs either unbeaten or contenders or winning championships like they have been.
That's fair.
I think, just last thing I want to say real quick, I think that the way Kelce's been effective recently is his ability to find a soft spot in the zone and just sit there, and his ability to run a shallow cross over the middle. And I think Rashee Rice has kind of taken that role over because he is a more dynamic player. But I think that's the most sustainable way to be a tight end in the league late into your mid-30s and stuff. And I think that Mahomes-Kelce marriage, I think, could last for a couple more years. Yeah.
I went with the hashtag Mahomes Magic. I mean, Mahomes has done it countless times, year in, year out, with a receiving core that's either banged up or somewhat a little higher caliber than the Panthers lineup. So he has done it countless times again with a washed receiving core. I mean, you talked about Smith-Schuster coming back. I mean, he's done it before with him, so I don't believe there's not a chance that he can't do it again. And going back to Xavier Worthy, that boy is fast. And he has become the new Tyreek Hill for them, and I think he is a very suitable man next up in the chair for them. And, I mean, half the time we watch the Chiefs, Mahomes is always running around. He's improvising. He's doing something to get his team to win. I mean, everyone saw the Eagles championship a few years ago, running around for his life and still managed to make it work. I mean, there's a reason people are calling him the second GOAT next to Tom Brady. He's done it with some of the same caliber players that Brady won his championships with, although probably a little worse. I mean, of course, an aging Travis Kelce. I mean, an aging Travis Kelce is a little bit of a problem for them. I mean, his stats look a little bad this year, obviously with everything outside of football for him. But I think Kareem Hunt coming back is also another big player for them. Of course, he was with them a few years ago. He's not going to have the same amount of legs as he used to, but I still think they get it done this year. They will be back in the Super Bowl, I guarantee you.
I disagree with that. I like Xavier Worthy if he's a piece in a good piece in an offense. He doesn't have the versatility. You can't send him over the middle because he'll die. Because I would die if I went over the middle.
Yeah.
So the versatility isn't quite there for the Chiefs. If Isaiah Pacheco comes back 100%, then I will reevaluate. But Kareem Hunt is not Isaiah Pacheco. Isaiah Pacheco, you talk about finding that soft spot for Travis Kelce. That soft spot won't exist because they don't have to worry about anyone else on the field. They have to have one guy deep for Xavier Worthy, and then they can double cover Travis Kelce. And then there's not much else because Kareem Hunt isn't a pass catching back. Carson Steele is a rookie. He's a
fullback.
Yeah, like he was going to be the running back 1 until they brought back Kareem Hunt. So until the Chiefs see what all of these injuries are and how they come back, I can't put them past the AFC Championship. There's too many talented teams in the gauntlet of the AFC.
I think that's a very fair point, and I think we just talk about, like, Xavier Worthy cannot be a wide receiver 1 because he is a Jameson Williams. He is not a Tyreek Hill. He is a Jameson Williams. There is very much a difference. Tyreek is a wide receiver 1. Jameson Williams could never be a wide receiver 1, but he makes the wide receiver 1 so much more dangerous because he's such a fast wide receiver 2. Xavier Worthy cannot lead the Chiefs back to the promised land. Travis Kelce and the other names of the receivers that you
Justin Watson,
brought out. Yeah,
Sky Moore,
yeah,
Juju
the guys
Smith-Schuster.
from McDonald's and Dunkin' Donuts and all that.
The insurance salesman.
But
and Juju.
when it comes to, he's not going to be able to lead them back to the promised land. But if anybody can do it, it's Mahomes and it's Andy Reid, because great coaches win great games.
I'll just say this. Every single year, most of the panelists across the NFL have had this same conversation at the beginning of the year for the Chiefs.
Exactly.
Mahomes has proved this again and again. Do not count me out. And I'm not going to count him out.
And Rasheed Rice can still come back, right? Like before the end of the season.
We don't.
It's unsure.
He could, I think that changes everything too.
It's
Like, even if
unsure,
they just get him in January, like I think it changes absolutely everything.
Fair.
Yeah.
He could come back, but what's he going to be like when he comes back? That's the problem.
I think 65% of that is still better than anything else they have in their
I think
receiving.
we'll
Yeah.
reevaluate in
This,
December. and
yeah,
January.
we'll be needing to talk
We'll
about
be
this
really
again
scared of the
in a few
Chiefs.
months.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about Pacheco. Pacheco's coming back.
Yeah.
He'll make.
No, that's the question.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
I can't consciously put them in that conversation until we see what he is in 3 months.
Right.
Absolutely.
No, I agree. I think one thing that nobody talked about, and I'm genuinely surprised, is the Chiefs' defense. This is one of the best defensive units in the NFL, and it's led by one of the best defensive coordinators in the league, in Steve Spagnuolo. I know that because I'm a Giants fan, so that's why. He used to be the DC there. Otherwise, but this was a team that only held the San Francisco 49ers, and that was with all their high power, almost everybody healthy, to only 19 points in the Super Bowl. At least in regulation, they did put a field goal in overtime. But I think that defense is going to have to play a huge role. And whether the Chiefs put up, 14, 20 points a game, it's going to have to be their defense to keep them in the games for now. So that will be something I'm interested to see who steps up. Do I think it's Xavier Worthy? I'm not going to say. But we'll move on from now, and we'll go into college football pick'ems. How about that? We have a little bit of a weaker slate compared to Georgia, Alabama, Penn State, Illinois. And we'll start in Vegas. Obviously, one of the biggest stories over last week that we didn't really cover because it was during the day was the quarterback, Matthew Slocum, pulling out of UNLV because he was not making enough money. So in comes UNLV, and they smoked their next opponent against Fresno State. Here they are. They're at home in Las Vegas. They're facing a Syracuse team that took a bad loss to Stanford but are otherwise very good on paper, in my opinion. UNLV, number 25th team in the country. Syracuse, an ACC foe. Who takes it?
What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. The old saying, this home field advantage, Syracuse is having to go all the way from New York to Vegas. I feel like that's going to be on their mind the whole time. This Vegas team has a really good defense as well. I feel like they're going to be able to keep this Syracuse team out. Absolutely. I feel like this home field advantage is going to be great for this Vegas team, who's the underdog in this game also. Most people don't believe in them in this game, and I feel like that Vegas are going to go over the line and win this for them.
You're correct. Vegas does love this game, but it's because everyone is overreacting to the UNLV win over Fresno State last week. Syracuse is by far the more talented team. Syracuse is always actually a pretty solid team. They just run in the ACC, which beats up on each other, and they're not one of those premier teams. They beat Georgia Tech, who beat FSU. Georgia Tech is a very solid program as well. Stanford, they lost to Stanford, last-second field goal. Stanford made Clemson stumble for the first 3 quarters of the game. They couldn't score, but their defense has been very good, and Syracuse put up points against them. Kyle McCord has been a very solid quarterback for them. Let's see, 1,459 passing yards, 14 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Not stellar, but a very solid starting quarterback. And UNLV has not faced an offense like this. They have not faced a top 50 offense yet this season. They've played Kansas, they beat Kansas. Kansas has proved to be terrible. So I don't see anything coming from that game. I think this Syracuse offense is going to be too much for the UNLV defense, and travel doesn't affect them. Syracuse goes up and down the coast. They make these long trips. They're going to have to go over to Cal and Stanford at some point as well. I don't think that's going to be a big deal. I think people are overreacting to UNLV, and UNLV is going to come falling back down to earth.
UNLV has a top 10 scoring offense and a top 15 scoring defense. But the point we just brought up is their best team they've played is Kansas. Fresno State used to be one of the top teams in the Mountain West. They are not that this year. It is going to be Boise State by 1,000,000 in whoever they play in that conference title game because no one's able to stop their running back. But that's another point. So with that said, give me Syracuse. It's not even going to be close. Everybody is way overreacting to them demolishing Fresno State. Fresno State is not what they once were. Syracuse has Kyle McCord. He's played great in that system. He struggled at Ohio State. He found the system in Syracuse and has adapted to it well, and he's played not fantastic, but solid to start the season. He's won them games, exactly what he was brought there to do. Syracuse is just the more talented team. They've got a really good defense that people don't really talk about enough. I mean, they made Georgia Tech had to change their game plan because they were not able to just pound the rock against Syracuse. So I feel like there's a lot of this is the feel-good story of the week. We talked about Illinois being it last week. This week it's UNLV, and the feel-good story, much like Illinois did, UNLV's comes to an end.
And to Griffin's point, they lost their starting quarterback. I know last week it was Haj Malik Williams, a dual-threat quarterback, a very, very good dual-threat quarterback for a group of 5 team. He hasn't faced this type of competition. He's a redshirt freshman in his second game starting. Again, Fresno State is not that good. They were able to use that option with him and find success. And Syracuse has watched the film now. They're going to be able to sniff it out with their front 7, and they're just going to UNLV is going to have no success offensively.
I think UNLV is going to have a pretty brutal wake-up call at some point this season with the teams they play, but I don't think that's this week. I have UNLV too, along with Drew. I think that on paper, I think Syracuse is a better team. I just think UNLV matches up well against them. I know you talked about Syracuse having to travel. It's their first road game, so I feel like they'll still be fresh, but New York to Vegas is a big difference. I think it can have an effect on them. And then I think just that Syracuse runs a very aerial attack. They don't rely on the run game very much, and that's how you beat UNLV right now. I think UNLV's pass defense is very good. They're very good at making plays, and they run an incredible pass defense attack or whatever. And then Kyle McCord's a good quarterback, and I mean it's surprising to see Syracuse throwing the ball well. They're top 10 in passing yards right now, but I just think that they match up well against them. I think UNLV can squeak it out.
I disagree. LaQuint Allen has been a very solid running back for Syracuse. Yes, they haven't run him that much, but if they need him to, he can be a very, very good running back. He's not going to beat a Power 5 team, but when you go into a team that doesn't have a very strong front 7, this type of running back is going to be able to run all over them if they need him to.
I could see that. This was the hardest team for me to pick, and I think if you told me right now that Syracuse wins, I would say they probably run the ball more than they have all year, and they establish a run game, but I mean, we haven't seen it yet, so yeah.
This game for me, like Caden, has been probably the hardest one to do this week. But after looking at Syracuse's pass attack numbers and looking at UNLV's defensive rankings, I'm taking Syracuse on this game. Kyle McCord this season so far has put himself as being the leader of one of the best pass attack teams in the country. And UNLV is a team built on the rushing defense. And while Syracuse numbers aren't that great, if Syracuse wants to win this game, they're going to have to abuse the pass attack. And looking at the numbers for UNLV, I mean, they're 11th in opponents' points per game and 27th in yards per game. But I don't think that really matters if your pass attack is weak and your opponent abuses the crap out of it. Syracuse is ranked number 3 for passing yards per game with 358 per game. And their yards per pass are already over 8 yards, and their completion is 67.19. Those are pretty good passing attack yards, so I've got to go Syracuse on this one. I think Kyle McCord's really going to show out, and I think at this point in this game, if they manage to win it, Syracuse could maybe punch a spot in the top 25. I don't know. Maybe. We could see it happening.
A top 25 win for them, so I can see it.
I could see it punching it in.
I mean, I do agree. I do think Syracuse is a top 25 team. I think it was a bad loss against Stanford. And again, to Toby's point, LaQuint Allen, only 25 yards as a rush, but that's a credit to Stanford's rushing defense. I think that there's a lot of different things there, but I digress. It's an exciting game, though, to see an ACC opponent travel to Vegas, play a Group of 5 opponent. I think it's interesting, which I wanted to bring it up. So we'll see about that. Next up, we'll go to the SEC. Why not? You're always going to see a top 25 matchup in there anyways, right? And here we are. We get the 99th ranked Missouri Tigers traveling to Kyle Field, one of the toughest places to play in college football, facing Mike Elko and the Texas A&M Aggies. 25th in the country. Both UNLV and Texas A&M are 25th in the country for some reason. They're just tied on votes. This is an interesting one, guys. I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say for this game. Who do you guys got?
So both these teams have some pretty famous chants. Obviously, Texas A&M has their Gig 'em. But in this case, I'm going to go with the easy choice, MIZZOU. Missouri dominates this game. A&M needed a miracle to beat Arkansas last week. They forced the fumble with a minute and a half left. Arkansas could have very easily put the drive together and won that game in AT&T Stadium. I think Brady Cook coming back for Missouri, he's been fantastic. Let's not forget Missouri's had 2 weeks to prepare for the Aggies. They had a bye last week, so they're completely fresh. I think they go in Aggieland. They say it's a tough environment, but yeah, it's so tough the Aggies can't win there. Mizzou dominates this game.
I am going to take Missouri on this game. To go off of A&M, I think they did not belong in the top 25. I think they're a sham team. Do I think that they're one of the top 50 teams? Yeah, for sure. But top 25, I don't really think so. I think the only reason they're still there is because of Mike Elko coming. I think that was just big for them. I mean, the Notre Dame game, I think, shows why they shouldn't be up there for me. But Missouri, yes, a little bit scared. Vanderbilt a few weeks ago, but Vanderbilt's also been confusing the crap out of everyone this year. They started off 2-0, and somehow, I don't know. I just got Missouri winning this game. I think Brady Cook's one of the best quarterbacks in the country this year so far. So, yeah, I've got Missouri winning the game.
Right here on my board, I got Bowling Green because I was sitting in a downtown pub, in Charleston Sports Pub, downtown Clemson, and I watched this A&M team absolutely lose their minds to Bowling Green. This game shouldn't have even been close. Like, Bowling Green and A&M, I feel like that game shouldn't have been close, and the fact that that was so close shows this Missouri team, they're just going to walk all over this A&M team. I don't see this being close. I see this being at least a 20-plus point game.
I'm very much going to object to that point, though, about the Bowling Green game not being close, because Bowling Green made it close with Penn State the week before that. Bowling Green has actually shown they are a Group of 5 team that can hang with the big dogs in the FBS in the top 25. The Penn States, the A&M's, the team like that. So I feel like overreacting to that game, I don't think is too much of an issue. I just think Missouri's offense is too potent. Luther Burden is probably one of the least talked about top wide receivers in America, and Mizzou wins this game easily.
I completely agree with you. I said let Brady cook. I think this is going to be an incredible game for Brady Cook. I think he's had efficient games this season, but I think this is just the perfect setup for them to just unleash him and let him do what he does best. Missouri's been running the ball effectively this year, and I think that's been keeping them from feeling the need to just let him do his thing. But I think Brady Cook's even better than he's played this year. And then Missouri's defense is incredible. They've allowed 12 points per game this year, which is 8th in the entire country. And I see a world where Cook throws multiple touchdowns in the first half. They go out on an early lead, and then they just run the ball and just get out of the game with a pretty substantial lead.
Yeah, Missouri has been rolling. They played Murray State and held them to 0 points, and then Buffalo and held them to 0 points. Just absolutely unbelievable wins from them. And then they get Boston College, and they beat them by 6 points. Just an absolute dominant victory out of Mizzou. And then they go into overtime with Vanderbilt.
Double overtime.
One of the worst teams, not this year, but still not a good program. I'm rolling with the Aggies. College Station is going to be rocking. I wish I could have power. I hear power playing in my head right now as the Aggies take the field, and they are going to roll Mizzou. I think this game isn't going to be close. I think this is going to surprise a lot of people, but Mizzou has not looked legit. They've won their games, but their receiving core has been lackluster, to say the least. They have been able to run the ball. But Texas A&M has also been better than people think. Notre Dame is always a weird game, and it was week 1. If you talk to any college coach, they'll say week 1 means absolutely nothing. They don't have a preseason. It's their first time playing live. So I'm going to give Texas A&M an excuse. It's not a good loss, but I'm going to give them an excuse for that game. They boast the nation's 13th best running offense in the country. If they can get that rolling, it's going to open up the passing game. They're going to score points in this game. They're going to have the crowd behind them. College Station is a tough place to play. Whether it's for the Aggies or not, it's still a tough place to play for both teams. I think Connor Weigman's status is unknown, but also Marcel Reed, who they've been rolling with recently, has been very good. He gives them that running option and allows them to kind of run that option. He can move out of the pocket. He can extend plays. And I see them winning this. I think Mizzou just hasn't found their rhythm yet. I think people don't realize that that game against Vanderbilt and Boston College means a lot. Obviously, they're two Power 5 teams, but they haven't. I haven't seen anything out of them. I haven't seen anything that proves they deserve to be there. Haven't seen much from Texas A&M either, but I'm taking an SEC home atmosphere to win them the game.
Here's the weird thing about Vanderbilt, though, is like obviously for the last probably 10 years, they've been one of the worst teams in college football. I think we can all agree on that. But this year, week 1, they beat Virginia Tech. And everybody's like, okay, throw out week 1. Then they take Mizzou to double overtime. Vanderbilt may actually be kind of legit this year. They are nowhere close to winning the SEC, but they've played well against really tough teams. I mean, Virginia Tech just went down into Miami and should have beat them. Don't get me started on that.
And then they lost to Rutgers. Or they lost to Rutgers before that. I get where you're going with this.
Rutgers and Vanderbilt are similar.
Continue,
Oh, yeah, my
continue.
bad.
But I think that Vanderbilt is, hard to say, but underrated for the first time in a while. And I
So
don't know.
weird to say that.
I don't disagree.
It doesn't roll off the tongue,
it's so
does it?
weird.
By no means do I disagree with you. By no means. Don't get me wrong, Vanderbilt is underrated, but they're still Vanderbilt. If you're the number 9 team in the country, you should roll over Vanderbilt, whether they're a good team or not. So that's my point.
That's
and then you
fair.
also look at Boston College. Yes, they beat FSU, but they haven't done much else. So that 6-point victory, here's Mizzou's problem. They haven't been able to find the end zone. They have not been able to find the end zone. They're not completing drives. They're one of the best offenses in the country until they get into the red zone, and then they're not converting. When you go into a place like College Station against a team like the Aggies, I'm not saying Texas A&M is stellar. I don't even know if they should be a top 25 team right now. I think they're fine in the top 25, but are they going to be at the end of the year? Who knows? I just don't think Mizzou is that good either, and I think the home field advantage is gonna give them the win.
I would just like to mention a chain. Texas A&M lost to Notre Dame. Then Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois. And you know who else Northern Illinois lost to? NC.
I don't look at chains like that.
Yeah, those can
Chains-
really get crazy. Yeah.
Notre Dame
Those
is
can get
historically
weird.
like that. Notre Dame also historically wins some big games. They're just a weird program.
Like
And
Notre-
it was week 1.
Last week, Louisville came to them, and Notre Dame basically controlled that game from start to finish. And they beat A&M pretty decently, but then slipped up against Northern Illinois. I feel like Notre Dame's just one of those weird teams. Any given Saturday, they'll either show up or they won't, and you just don't know.
My point being, I just haven't seen this A&M team prove themselves, and I don't see them being Mizzou.
I agree.
Well, Toby's not alone. I do have Texas A&M picked. On paper, they look the part. I do think Marcel Reed is very, very similar to the Vanderbilt quarterback, Diego Pavia. He's very much run first, triple option, that type thing. So I do have Texas A&M winning that game. It's a lot of words to say. But moving on really, really fast, we'll move to the Big Ten. Now, 2 exciting teams. First one, Rutgers, 4-0 for the first time since, I believe, 1980. Traveling again to Nebraska to face a Nebraska team that had a tough loss last time out at home. Looking to get one back. It's a Big Ten game between 2 underrated teams, I'd say, in the Big Ten. Who takes it?
I don't even need a board. Give me Rutgers. I can't say that. I'm not from New Jersey. I know Griffin is, so don't take offense to that. This is what I call a coin flip game. A one-score game, not really sure who's going to win it. Teams are kind of very different, but Rutgers has been playing well as a not good team, and Nebraska has been playing poorly as a good team, if that makes sense. And Nebraska historically finds a way to lose these types of games. The close games, they find a way to lose them, and Rutgers has found a way to win them. They beat Virginia Tech. They beat Washington. I think that continues this week. I think Rutgers surprises a lot of people and keeps it rolling. Maybe I'm buying into the Vegas line that everybody wants them to pick Rutgers. But I think Nebraska has kind of lost some of its steam after that loss to Illinois. Their season isn't over, but it means less now.
Give me Rutgers. I mean, I didn't put anything on my board either. There's a special guy that I'd like to point out as well. Their running back, Manungai. He has been ridiculous this season. Manungai. Yeah, Manungai. He's been putting up ridiculous stats this season. He's the man for this Rutgers team. Kali Amanis as well. Sorry, I butchered that. He has put up really good stats as well. He put up 58.3% completion rate against UW. And he was very clinical against Virginia Tech as well. And I feel like he can keep that completion above 60% against this Nebraska team in Nebraska. Rutgers are definitely winning this game. Give me Rutgers.
I think that for all you people who said UNLV and Syracuse was the hardest game to pick, this is the hardest game to pick. Rutgers has really a dual threat attack, which is kind of surprising. Their quarterbacks played, again, well, not stellar, not Heisman contention by any means, but he's won them games. They went into Virginia Tech, the Enter Sandman environment. People always say it's a top 10 environment in college football, and beat them. They beat on Washington, who obviously is not the same Washington as they were last year, but went into Washington and beat them there. So I feel like Rutgers has a lot going for them. Nebraska has Dylan Raiola. But if you're talking about a team that's going to win the game, Rutgers is going to stay unbeaten because a dual threat attack beats solely a passing attack.
I think Raiola's been really good as a freshman this year, and he's an amazing Mahomes impersonator and stuff. And I think he, like I said with UNLV, is going to have some kind of, they're going to come crashing down at some point. I think Raiola is going to have some kind of welcome to the Big Ten moment, but I don't think that's this week. I don't think it's the Scarlets' night. I think that Nebraska is going to win this one. I think, like I said, first of all, I think I'm very biased against Rutgers. I just can't picture them as a good football team. I've never seen it before. Kind of similar to Vanderbilt this year. I mean, Vanderbilt's a Conference USA team disguised as a SEC team, and I feel like Rutgers is like a Ivy League school disguised as a Big Ten school. It's just it's hard to see them as effective. They've been good this year.
Who said New Jersey kids could go to an Ivy League?
All right, yeah. Rutgers, then they can go wherever. Yeah. But I think Nebraska's passing offense has been very, very effective against poor defenses. And I think that can carry over against the Rutgers defense. And not to say they're a bad defense, but I think that it'll still be effective. And then I think this was a hard one to pick too. I think a lot of these games were tough to pick, except the Missouri game. I don't think it's going to be close at all. But the UNLV and Rutgers, that's what I'm sticking with. Or UNLV and Nebraska, yeah.
Corn. Great. I got Nebraska winning this game. Rutgers has, of course, been on a very special run of theirs, 4-0, wins against Virginia Tech and Washington. Virginia Tech, of course, went toe-to-toe with Miami and should have won that game. And then, of course, they beat Washington, who, of course, was in the national championship last year. I would love to say Rutgers, but they've played, of course, Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech, of course, almost beat Miami. I also think Miami is also a scrub school. I think they're good. They're just not that great. And then Washington, this is not the same team that was in the national championship last year, so I really don't, and of course with their head coach leading, Kalen DeBoer, I really don't think you can make a case for that's a big game for them. So I'm going to go with Nebraska here. If you look at their defensive numbers, in most of them they're ranked 12th, 13th, 28th. The defense numbers show it, and I think Nebraska is going to take this game. Plus, playing in Nebraska is a pretty tough environment, and they were regarded as the best 3-8 team in college football at one point, so I'm going Nebraska.
You know who I have in this game. I think it's pretty obvious who I have in this game. So we'll move on. We'll move on from that. We'll go into NFL pick'ems really, really quickly. We'll go to London. How about that? Second abroad game. I forgot about the Brazil game. 2-2 Jets coming off a bad loss against the Broncos at home. They're both traveling to London, I believe. They're facing the undefeated Vikings, who have been one of the most exciting teams to watch in the NFL. I think I'm the first person to say that. Jets, Vikings, who you guys got?
Oh, I was writing Burr because it's cold in Minnesota. I don't have anything to say about this game. Minnesota is the better team, no question about it. The Jets don't look like they should be on the same field as a good team. They look like they should be on the Titans level. not quite that bad. But Minnesota is just clearly the better team. The Jets are going to jet. Minnesota wins this game with ease.
I put Skull on my board. For any of you cultured NFL fans, that means go Vikings. I think this is not even going to be a contest. The Jets just went in and lost to Denver. And they were looked at as like a dark horse for the AFC East, maybe in the AFC Championship preseason. Heck no. Minnesota wins this game. Jordan Addison's back. He made a big impact in the game against Green Bay. Arguably was the reason they won it. I would debate people on that. But I think Minnesota's offense is just too potent. Their defense is going to be just fine. They go into London, Skull Vikings.
Any of y'all play the stock market or like to invest? No? None of y'all?
No.
No? Really? All right. Do y'all, maybe one of y'all can help me out. Do y'all buy a stock when it's at its most expensive or when it's at its lowest?
I don't buy stocks that are going to fail with a 42-year-old man running them.
All right.
Well, doesn't have an Achilles tendon.
If you play the stock market, you buy a stock when it's at its lowest because then it can only go up. And I'm buying it on the Jets defense at this point. They've been good for the past few seasons, and I think that this year they've looked awful, and it's been a rough defense. I still believe in the Jets defense completely, and then I think that the Vikings are so much better, and I think that Sam Darnold's looked incredible this year under the Kevin O'Connell system. But I mean, his biggest flaw has always been, I'm struggling to be able to word this, his lack of short-term memory loss. Sam Darnold makes mistakes and he lets it get to his head and he lets them string together. He has been in a system that's allowed him to avoid those mistakes to this point. But I think this is the game where the Jets defense is officially back, and I think they're going to create some turnovers. It's going to mess Darnold up, and I think he's going to get in his head. And this first test for him, I think, is going to be brutal.
Speaking of money, I'll buy stock when you guys pay Hassan Reddick. How about that?
Yeah.
That's fair enough.
Yeah, I feel like if the Vikings were going to have a slip-up game, it would have been when they went into Houston and throttled the Texans because they made C.J. Stroud look average, which not a lot of people can do. And then their defense had no answers for Aaron Jones, for Justin Jefferson, for Sam Darnold, for that whole Vikings offense. So if they were going to slip up, it was going to be then. It damn sure ain't going to be now.
I think the Jets have had a top 3 defense the last 2 seasons, and they've had 4 bad games. I'm not ready to count that out yet. I think this is where they get back.
Okay. For this game, our words describe both these teams: retirement and rebirth. Aaron Rodgers, I think age is starting to show in his game of the past few games.
Absolutely.
And then Sam Darnold, what a run this year. I mean, absolutely no one expected this after J.J. McCarthy went down.
I did.
Okay, you guys might have.
I did too, yeah.
But, I mean, he right now is putting himself as possibly a starting quarterback for years to come. I mean, especially if J.J. McCarthy never gets healthy again. Sam Darnold is always going to be a good quarterback. And I see a little bit of a Baker Mayfield 2.0 in him. I really do.
Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield both kind of have the same start. They started with no receiver core.
And Adam
now
Gase,
Sam Darnold's got a receiver core. He's got a running back. He's got a potent offense. And he's got a really good coordinator and coach in Kevin O'Connell. So I feel like, I mean, it is a quote-unquote rebirth, but it's because he finally has talent to put the ball in their hands.
I think some quarterbacks just need a good system to succeed. I think Sam Darnold's like that. I think Brock Purdy's like that. I think there's some guys out there that you can't just throw into any offense, like Sam Darnold on the Jets or the Panthers, and expect him to succeed. But once you get him a good play caller and good coach, I think Darnold can be great. As long as he has a Kevin O'Connell with him, I think Darnold can be a perfectly fine quarterback. Yeah.
On my board, I put weather and I put 10-9 because Minnesota Bear. And that's also 10-9 is also the same amount of thousands of years that was taken off of my life when I saw the Broncos-Jets game that ended 10-9. If there was a game that the Jets were gonna prove that they were worthy, it would have been against the Broncos, and they didn't do it. They didn't show up, and there's no way this Jets team is beating the Vikings, and that's it.
Yeah, I've been a big Aaron Rodgers guy my whole life. So I hate to go against the Jets and Rodgers. Toby, stop pointing at me. I know the Mets just won. But we'll move on really, really quickly because we are going a little bit too fast. We got the Buffalo Bills. They're traveling to Houston on a Sunday afternoon game. They're facing the Texans. It's 2 teams at 3-1. Who takes it today?
Again, didn't write anything down. Give me the Bills. Texans are still a good team, but I think this is a little bit of a regression for C.J. Stroud. Sophomore slump. He's not playing bad, but he's not playing stellar like he did last year. Some of that is the team. Some of that is, hey, teams finally have film on him. We can adjust to what he's going to do. And the Bills have the MVP as of right now. They're going to bounce back after a tough loss to the Ravens. The Ravens are a good team. I don't see that affecting the Bills much. I think the Bills are going to go in there at a 1 p.m. game. They're going to win by 2 touchdowns, and they're going to keep their season going on a good note.
So the Baltimore Ravens, they brought back King Henry, who was nowhere to be seen for the first couple games. They ran the crap out of the ball against Dallas and beat them. They ran the crap out of the ball against Buffalo and beat them. Houston is not going to be able to run the crap out of the ball against the Bills' defense. If Joe Mixon's questionable, which he is right now, we don't know if he's going to play. But even if he is, I don't think that Joe Mixon and that Houston run game is going to be enough. And it would be too much in the hands of C.J. Stroud. And the Bills have a very good pass defense. You didn't get to see it Sunday night because they ran the ball so well. But the Bills have a very good pass defense. And if it comes down to that, the Bills win this game.
Yeah, I feel like the Bills, they're so easily able to take down these average defenses. And I believe that this Texans defense is average, as well as the other 3 games that they have won. They've been against average defenses. I feel like Josh Allen is really good at going against these average defenses and just like being able to throw the ball to his receivers. And yeah, that's their expertise, and I feel like that's going to get them over the line. The only way that they don't get over the line is if Nico Collins has a good game. I feel like that's the only thing that'll determine this.
I'm taking the Bills in this game. Just simply, Josh Allen, he's solidified himself as probably the best quarterback this year so far. His numbers have been absolutely stellar. And, of course, the Ravens game went a little bad for them. But, of course, when you have not a great rushing attack on defense, Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson is going to make you pay for that. So I think that game was a little bit of a fluke for them. They can probably toss that out, especially against a Texans team. And I think perfectly, C.J. Stroud, he's going to have to play against an amazing passing attack defense. And it's just not going to happen, especially without Joe Mixon. It's going to be rough for them.
I think the 2 most exciting, the best things about football, the most exciting ways to watch football is watching an elite quarterback just do his thing, and then watching an incredible marriage between a coordinator that knows his quarterback well and knows exactly how to utilize him. And I think that, the most textbook perfect example of that is in this game right now. I love watching how Bobby Slowick utilizes C.J. Stroud, and I love just seeing Josh Allen just turn nothing into something constantly with the lackluster receiving core he has. So I'm incredibly excited for this game, more so than I'd say any other college or NFL game this weekend. But I'm really struggling on who to pick. It's so hard to bet against Josh Allen, and there's just such a world where he can completely take over this game, and it can, not even be close at all. But I do like the Texans' balanced offense. I completely agree with what you're saying about the defense. Again, I have almost no idea, but I think I am going to take. I go back and forth, y'all. I think I'm gonna take the Texans, though. Yeah.
Thank God you saved the sweep.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Really?
We were
I was about to say.
Y'all went all Bills?
We were going to be a meme if the Texans
Texans
proceeded to win by 30 on Sunday.
Absolutely, the Texans are winning this week. Yeah, and I'll flip that.
Thank you.
Yeah, there we
Thank
go.
you.
I mean, Caden's really beating these curses. He had the Jets in the last one. He was the only guy to pick the Jets.
Yeah, I thought I beat the sleep on that one. Yeah, but that's,
we'll go to our last game really, really quickly. For the next 2, only one sentence. I'll restrict you guys a little bit. Last game, Sunday Night Football. 2-2 Dallas Cowboys traveling to Pittsburgh. 3-1 Steelers. Who wins? 1 sentence. Why? Who's starting?
I got 2 words for you. Dan Quinn to Mike Zimmer, diminish the Cowboys' defense. Steelers.
That was not 2 words. That was 2 words.
I have 3 words. Fields versus Prescott. Fields.
Giants game, Steelers.
Parsons is not playing. Steelers.
This hurts me. Steelers.
Sweet.
That's the easiest one, I think.
Easy.
Of all 6.
That was the easiest.
Yes.
Interesting.
I'm a Cowboys fan. That one hurt, but just too many injuries.
I guess we
Jalen Tolbert's their
went
second
we
best
went clean sweep
pass catcher
Steelers.
right now. Or I guess Ferguson.
That might never happen again.
The final thing before we go. It is the first day of the MLB playoffs. As you can tell, we were celebrating over there when I was introducing the game. The Mets obviously won. That's my team. Again, one sentence. I'm going to really make this hard on you guys. Who is winning the MLB playoffs? And you only have one sentence to say why. I'm going to start. So let's start with Jackson. So we'll go right to left.
Never going Phillies. Dodgers win it.
Phillies, they have the best WAR in their pitching staff and the third best WAR as a team overall.
Dodgers, Ohtani, Yamamoto.
I guess the Yankees. I hope not. That's my one sentence.
I picked Arizona last year as the long shot. They went to the World Series, so now I'm picking the Tigers. Go Detroit.
I'll go really fast, too. I say Philly. I say best roster in baseball. But who am I to say? I guess we'll find out in a month from now. But really fast, it's going to do us. That will be the end of the episode today of The Extra Point. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you especially to Tigervision, to Zach and Connor in the control booth. Love you guys. Thank you for getting this up and going. To my panelists, great job today. Glad you're back for another week. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to Tigervision. But until then, until next time, I'm Griffin Barfield. I'll see you guys next week.